Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning. That's me.
You can't be exposed to television light and not wear glasses in years.
This is it.
Ayo, I don't know how you are doing.
Just dodging. In and out.
When I started working here, I wasn't wearing glasses.
Were you not? You weren't wearing glasses before?
I wasn't wearing glasses.
So it's alright I did it to you. We'll do our own class action soon, don't worry.
You see, if you work in television for long, that's not how you work.
You can't avoid it,
because
right?
of the lighting. Yeah, so
Ayo, Manchester City, they're coming. They're coming. 3 point.
No, we need to watch our back. Why do they keep doing this?
Can we just win in
peace?
Don't know what's happening. Good morning to you viewers. Let me tell you what's happening around the world. Okay, Dr. Rubin actually mentioned this story yesterday, right? Zimbabwean President Emerson Mnangagwa's government is pushing a controversial constitutional change that could keep him in power until 2030. Now, his cabinet has backed a draft bill to extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, meaning Mnangagwa, who was due to step down in 2028, could stay on for 2 more years and shift future presidential selection from a direct vote to election by parliament. Well, supporters in the ruling party say that these changes will boost stability and continuity, but opponents are warning that it is a significant democratic setback. Meanwhile, critics, also including opposition figures and constitutional experts, are arguing that the amendment undermines democratic norms and that any extension affecting an incumbent should require a national referendum. I think many people would agree. Let's move over to Canada. Now, Canadian authorities, they have now identified the suspect in that deadly shooting earlier this week at Tumbler Ridge High School in British Columbia. They've identified the suspect as school dropout 18-year-old Jessie Van Rootselaar. She's a local resident. Now, police say Van Rootselaar had a history of mental health-related challenges and mental health-related police visits and died at the scene from a self-inflicted wound. Now, this happened after the attack, which also involved the killing of her own mother and her stepfather before she went to the school and killed 6 other people. Now, the shooter, who was born male but now identifies as woman, had previously held a firearms license, but it had expired in 2024, and no firm motive at this point has been publicly established. More than 25 people were wounded and at least 8 victims, excluding the shooter, were killed in the incident. It remains one of the deadliest mass shootings in recent Canadian history. Now, coming over to the United Kingdom, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer has publicly condemned the remarks by this gentleman behind me. He is Britain's 7th richest man. He's billionaire businessman and Manchester United owner Jim Ratcliffe, who claimed in a TV interview that the UK had been colonised by immigrants. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
At the moment, I don't think the economy is in a good... You can't afford... you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million.
I mean, it's bad enough he's a United fan. Somebody might give him a dictionary and give him, the definition of what it means to be colonised. That being said, Ratcliffe, who moved to tax-free Monaco back in 2020, also criticised people who received social state-sponsored benefits, as well as immigrants. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he's called this language offensive and wrong, and he urged Ratcliffe to issue an apology. It hasn't happened yet. And he goes on to say that Britain is a proud, tolerant, and diverse country. We'll see what happens there. Coming home, well, not home, we're coming over now to Bangladesh, where parliamentary elections are underway today in the country, marking the first national vote since a 2024 uprising toppled the longtime leader, Sheikh Hasina, and saw her Sheikh Hasina-led party barred from contesting. Now, the leading contender is a gentleman by the name of Tariq Rahman. He is the head of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, who has returned from exile and is campaigning on restoring democracy, on tackling tackling corruption and reviving the economy. Challenging him is a coalition, and that is led by the Jamaat al-Islami, which is an Islamist alliance that includes youth-led partners and aims to really reshape what governance looks like in Bangladesh if elected. More than 127 million voters are casting their ballots for 300 seats in parliament under tight security. Results are expected by Friday. Well, let's move on now to our newspaper headlines across the globe. And as ever, we begin right here at home in Nigeria with This Day. Now, This Day does lead, and really, it has a whole heap of reports, but it does lead on this historic news that the Dangote Petroleum Refinery has reached its full nameplate capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. The refinery said that the milestone strengthens steady operations and positions it to supply up to 75 million litres of petrol every day. Huge congratulations to them. Now, This Day also reports that the new Nigerian People's Party has expressed shock over US congressional bills seeking visa bans and asset seizures against its leader, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, over alleged religious persecution here in Nigeria. Now, that bill also calls for sanctions against Fulani militias and Miyetti Allah groups. Looking at the Daily Trust this morning, it also dedicates its lead page to this very story, of course reporting that 5 US lawmakers proposed this bill seeking to ban visas and freeze the assets of NNPP leader Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Now, The Guardian of Nigeria this morning has a very interesting front page, and it really looks at the number of violent incidents in this year, 2025, this graphic here. And so amongst very eye-opening statistics, it does go on to show that banditry has actually overtaken insurgency as Nigeria's deadliest threat, with 2,724 deaths alone last year, 2025. And moving on to the Daily Independent this morning, we are looking at the fact that legal experts have really weighed in on this issue and looking at the structural cracks off the back of the 2027 elections amid controversy, of course, over these electronic transmission of results and all of that blowback. And looking at the New Telegraph this morning, the New Telegraph weighs in again on INEC. So you've got the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, saying that it will use the 2026 FCT Area Council, the Ekiti and Osun governorship elections as preparatory grounds for the 2027 general elections. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amukbutan said that the polls will help strengthen election security and curb risks such as vote buying, political tensions and insecurity through collaboration with security agencies and anti-corruption bodies. We will see. The Vanguard this morning takes a look at the federal government, and essentially the federal government has now weighed in on this issue with NAFDAC and its ban. So the federal government has urged NAFDAC to stop its enforcement of the ban on sachet and small bottle alcoholic drinks, and that's against the backdrop of a lot of controversy. The move really does follow concerns that even though the ban aims to curb alcohol abuse, especially amongst minors, it could threaten livelihoods and contribute to unemployment. Well, we all have to see. Let's move on to our UK papers. We just got the one UK paper today, the UK Guardian. And on the one hand, you've got MPs, Labour MPs have urged the Prime Minister to name a woman as his next deputy. And that's after Morgan McSweeney resigned over the weekend, earlier on this week. And then the picture headline for us millennials, people who grew up in the 90s, this is James Van Der Beek. He is best known for his starring role in the US teen drama of the 90s called Dawson's Creek. And he unfortunately died, aged 48, after being diagnosed with bowel cancer just 2 years ago. Those are your World Brief stories and your newspaper review. Love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. In countries of the world, maybe countries that are not as advanced, the same playbook plays out, and I'm scared for Bangladesh. I feel the students that died in that revolution just died in vain because the system has rebooted. I'll take you back to the 60s. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman fought for independence. That's Sheikh Hasina's father. After he died, General Zia got in. General Zia consolidated. When he died, BNP got in. His wife led the party. So it's been a contention between BNP, Bangladeshi National Party, and the Awami League. In fact, it's called the Battle of the Begums. Both of them has been going back and forth at each other. Hasina had this good end of the stick, arrested Zia's wife, and that went on for a while.
Yes, we're talking about Bangladesh.
Bangladesh, Mrs. Rahman. And that went on for a while. Now, Asina is out. Zia's son is about to take over. Because the other party, the Jamaat al-Islam, was the same party that supported, that was, in cahoots with Zia in the 70s when they were fighting for the Bangladeshi liberation struggle, that supported the Pakistanis. So if Zia's son comes in, it's a cycle again. One part of the Begum has gotten power. Power has revolved between the Awami League and the BNP.
Yeah.
Just like Emerson, Crocodile, Lacoste, Managangwa. The same thing. Vice president, they feel they own the country because they fought for the independence. So people like the Nkomos of this world, they pushed them out. That's why Gukuru happened in the 80s, where they destroyed and killed people from another ethnic group that was not theirs, in the Beles. And that continued for a while. While he saw that Mugabe was getting old, what did he do? He got people from the Zimbabwe Armed Forces, Chiwenga supported him, and he got people from his own coalition because they felt that if Mugabe had died, Gucci Grace, Mugabe's wife, would have taken over. So they fought that faction out in a coup, eased Mugabe out, got power. That's why he thinks he should be there forever. So you see the countries, they are not free. It's a revolving cycle. Probably if somebody within puts a fight against Chiwenga, it's still going to be a revolving decimal.
All right. For me, I'll just say one sentence on that, which is with the development in Zimbabwe, the concern for a number of people would be the threat to democracy on the continent. We've seen how sit-tight leadership has spread across the continent. And unfortunately, even as we often talk about freedom fighters, people who are part of the struggle come into power and then do exactly the same thing that they fought against. And so I hope the people of Zimbabwe, I doubt very much if this is the direction or the path they'd want to toe, speak up and fight against it. Unfortunately, though, if you look at trends in places like Tanzania and other countries where people have dared to speak against actions like this in a very authoritarian, with authoritarian leadership, that's usually a kickback and even sometimes loss of life. So we haven't even seen that really work when people come out to speak against, constitutional direction that is anti-democracy and democratic principles. However, we continue to speak up. We continue to protect democracy on the African continent. And I believe that now the leaders themselves must begin to also speak up against undemocratic, principles or movements like this. But moving away from that, let me talk about Jim Ratcliffe, who is the co-owner of Manchester United. Dr. Bata, what's going on with that? How do I trust him?
22.47% stake.
Yes, co-owner. Man U, yeah. So, but the truth is that I just looked I did a quick look at even one of the companies.
She's saying to you because you're a Man U fan.
Yes. One of the co-owners. But he knows. No, my Dr. Bata, he knows.
I'm just defining the bona fide.
But the reason I'm saying that is because even if you look at the profile, I'm talking about the richness or the irony of his statements is that a number of the players in Manchester United themselves, beefing of the team, are migrants. A large percentage of players there, and him being co-owner. But even beyond that, the hypocrisy of it is that he's speaking as a migrant in Monaco. He himself is a migrant, but you see what that means. The underlying part of that is that how they see it is us versus them. Mm-hmm. So to him, actually, he might not even see himself as a migrant in Spain, because to him, he's, we are together, this is us. But I'm glad that the United Kingdom, through its Prime Minister, have come out very, to say that this is not the position. The UK has enjoyed the benefits of migrants, and in terms of colonization, you were asking in terms of definition, it is when a foreign power seizes, subjugates a people and seizes power forcefully. The migrants are not even close to doing that in the UK. I think they need to be careful about the rhetoric of demonizing migration, because it's not all bad. Yes, there are people who come in illegally and sometimes, take part in criminal activities, but the UK has benefited historically from migration. So they shouldn't demonize it, and I'm glad that the Prime Minister has come out to speak about that, very definitely.
Okay, what you have today in Bangladesh, 127 million people eligible to vote. As we speak, over 1 million persons have already voted. But what you have is a battle of the Ramans. This is, election taking place after Sheikh Hasina was driven out by student protesters. And now in this election now, the Awami League party which was in power for a very long time, has been banned. Now you have the BNP, the Bangladeshi National Party, and you have the Jumat party led by students, what they call the National Citizens Party. Now the BNP, they are running a traditional campaign, but the students who came together and said, well, we chased one prime minister out, we want to seize power ourselves. The major challenge here is that the National Citizens Party, which is a coalition of 11 parties leading the struggle, would they be able to form government? Would they be able to address the issues? The second thing that is taking place today is a referendum over what they call the National Charter. The National Charter 2025 is supposed to determine the future of Bangladesh. But at the end of the day, a winner will emerge. Yeah. But there will be unresolved issues, particularly with Sheikh Hasina running abroad, and then requests for extradition and the legal issues in the courts. Other countries are interested in what happens in Bangladesh. China, for example, which is a major trading partner with Bangladesh, and then the international community, of course, about the future of that country, which is the eighth most populous country in the world. Now, yesterday I brought up the issue of Zimbabwe. And I think Zimbabwe is very important to us in one regard, that we're likely to have in Zimbabwe the President Mnangagwa, staying in office. He first got to office in 2017. He had an election, 2018. Then he got his second term. Now he wants to change the constitution. 13 years ago, there was a referendum in Zimbabwe to impose term limits. Mm-hmm. And now basically that is what the ZANU-PF wants to change right now. And President Mnangagwa, when the matter was first proposed, he said, he was not interested. But he seems to be interested now. The parliament in Zimbabwe is dominated by the ZANU-PF. So when they propose this bill, you can be sure it's going to go through. And you'll find the same situation that we have seen in Uganda, that we have seen in Zimbabwe, that we have seen in Equatorial Guinea, that we have seen in Democratic Republic of Congo. So this is a curse for Africa, that our leaders don't know when to leave. However, the Justice Minister, Zinyambi, that's his name. He says, there will be consultations with the public, and then the matter will go to Parliament. But you know what Parliament will say at the end of the day. Now, human rights activists are saying this is not possible because the Constitution requires a referendum. The Constitution says the incumbent cannot benefit from it. And then a man called Geza, who was a member of ZANU-PF, who was opposing Mnangagwa, he was driven out. He went to South Africa. He died conveniently last week for opposing Mnangagwa. So this is the story of Africa. May it be well with the people of Zimbabwe.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adefemi.